Reese from the Point Music Podcast thingy. Another juicy episode with Zach from Locian. I did review his full-length album, Fears, Reflections, and Shades of Time. Big, massive concept album, which is paired with a book as well, which is it's all very immersive, very, very cool. Kind of pairing of trip hop and sort of guitar orientated sort of experimentalism. We go on so many tangents in this, so we get a bit deep. So it's very, very cool. I do hope you sort of stay with us on this journey on this podcast. So without further ado, people, this is Zach, aka Locian. People of all sorts, please do enjoy. All right, Zach, aka Locian. Okay, this has been because we've been interacting a little bit for the past year or so, like that. I think it's been
Something like that. Yeah,
like that.
about a year.
Yeah, so it's nice to actually see you on a digital face-to-face sort of aspect.
I know. Well, imagine what's going to be like when we finally meet in person. It's going to be amazing.
Although I have to go down to Sydney, or you have to come up here.
Well, I'll probably come up there at some point, so it'll happen.
It'll happen. All right, beers. Congrats on the album, man. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I did do the full review of it. Fears, Reflections, and Shades of Time, which is a mouthful, but understood because of what is to be expected when you have to go on this journey with you on this album, because this thing is a fucking concept album. So before we get into the bits and pieces of it, I want you to explain why you came up with this.
It's a great question. So I came up with it. It was sort of a very slow process of trying to figure out what I wanted to write about. And originally, I was actually writing purely about fear and letting go of fear.
Yeah.
But then I started really getting into Carl Jung and his active imagination, which is that meditation technique, which helps bridge the conscious and the subconscious. And I started doing that and partaking in that, and just that really influenced me to write more of like the hero's journey of someone who goes into their subconscious and meets. So it's partially like a reflection of my own adventures, but something I've also developed. So at first, when I was writing the album, I didn't really have that thorough of a concept, but it just kind of naturally kept evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to about 5 out of the 9 tracks written, I was like, okay, I really want to actually write a journey where you sit down and the whole story actually progresses through each song. So there was a moment where I thought this would be really cool if there was, I could, you sit down and it's all, it's not just a collection of songs, it's an actual thread that runs through the whole album.
Yeah, which is kind of lost these days. Like the attention span of most people, like they don't have the time to spend immersing in this format, which is a shame, because it is becoming like a bit of a lost art. It's coming back. I mean, with vinyl and that, people sit down and actually appreciate it. But I mean, what you've done is combined this body of work with another body of work, which is the book that you've paired it up with, which was mind blowing to me, because like I said to you when you pitched it to me as an article and a review, and that I said full blown co-ed in Cambria. That was the first thing that came to mind. Do you understand that?
No, I don't.
Okay, so co-ed in Cambria. Do you know who they are?
No.
Okay, they're like a prog. Some people have lumped them into like a pop punky thing, but they're definitely not. They're a progressive, almost stadium rock in a sense, band. And when they first, the main guy Claudio, amazing guitarist for one, but also a genius comic book writer. And he paired the whole story of Coed in Cambria with a series of graphic novels, and it just...
Oh, that's cool.
I think it went over like a 6 or 7 album arc, this whole space epic of the characters of Coed in Cambria and the dynasty of it all. It was epic, and that was the first thing that came to mind. And I really appreciate when people pair two forms of artwork together. I mean, film clips, yeah, that's one thing. That feels like a promotional thing. Whereas when you're pairing it with another tangible like medium, like a book, where you physically, I mean, you do have the digital version obviously, but you've actually put them to print, and it's meant to sit down and, as you pitched it to me, you listen to a track and then you read that chapter, correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. So you read a song,
Yeah.
you read the first story, and then you listen to a track, and the lyrics are there, so you can, it gives you a bit of a guide. There's one point where there's two stories in a row, which I realized wasn't actually very clear, but I'm hoping some people figured that out.
Mm,
But it basically you see the song title in the lyrics, and so it's pretty obvious that okay, play a song here. And actually, touching on the whole album thing, that's another reason why I wanted to make it like a journey is that I'm more of an album guy.
yeah.
I've never really been into streaming and I've never been into Spotify that much. Like ever since Spotify became the main thing and all streaming services became the main thing, I my amount of music I listen to just sharply declined
Yeah.
because it I find that really leans into singles and stuff. And so that's part of the reason why I put it on YouTube as a single album like file
Yeah.
is so people can sit down and spend the time to actually listen.
Yeah. It's
Which I'm really happy that you said it was a journey because it's nice that you actually sat down and listened to it all.
well, it's kind of my job to do that anyway. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
it. I do
but
appreciate
you could
that.
have stopped and then listened to it again. You could have like stopped halfway and been like, "Oh, I'll come back to the rest of it."
No, but that's not the whole point of it. The whole point of you pairing, like you said, it's a journey. You've got this narrator, and I mean, it's your writing, but you've created this character, this narrator who goes through these meeting. It's all these Greek mythological characters that you're meeting along the way, and like a ritualistic step in rite of passage. I think I said in the actual
Mm.
review, and I'm guessing it's a kind of a cathartic thing for whatever you've gone through to put this out and basically into music and to writing.
Yeah. Well, there was like a lot of fears that was holding me back musically and artistically. So
Mm.
for a while, like singing was like something that I was very hesitant to dive into, even though I've sung before, but just being I wasn't good.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I didn't want to do it. So that was one thing. And then all sorts of personal sort of fears and subconscious beliefs. And when I actually wrote the book, like the album itself, because they were written completely different times. I wrote the album like a year and a half ago. And
Yeah.
then the book was written a couple of months ago, and the book was cathartic in a way because it really just flowed out of me, and some of the stories were just almost me just subconsciously typing it out.
hmm
Um, yeah, it was quite a trippy experience.
I, I I usually refer to that as a word vomit.
It was very word vomiting. It was quite word vomity, and then to get the idea out and the main story beats, and then I would sit there and it was really methodical with like because I've only got a small space of. I didn't want it to be a full book,
Yeah.
so I wanted each story to be quite brief, so you weren't too far away from the music. So then I had to be really, really methodical about what I wanted to say in those lines. So it was like a huge amount of words, and then I tried to whittle it down to just very brief, you know, paragraphs.
Yeah, the editing process is always a bitch. Trust me, I know that very, very well.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm just trying to gather. I've got like so many tabs open right now, and when it comes to concept albums, um, they're not always precisely clear from the get go. So, what is the absolute message, the defining message that you're trying to get through in this particular piece?
Um, Probably reflection, as in like, the
Mm,
album is reflections, fears, reflections, and shades of time. So to me, a lot of the music I write and a lot of the lyrics I write is something a lot of my own reflections on myself and why I do things.
yeah.
So something that I really I like to put ideas forward in the song. So like Power, for example, is about negative thinking and how negative thinking can basically poison your heart and your emotions. And so by putting my own reflections and the way I think out into the world, I hope to inspire people to think about the reason why they do things
Mm,
and so they can reflect on their actions. So that's in some of the book. There's a few things that say that quite literally. Some of the characters might say, I can't even remember half of the lines, but To be honest, I've only read the book
It's
once,
all
or
right.
like once or twice.
It's like when you record something you let out and you put it out into the nether sphere, and all of a sudden you just go, yeah, I'm not listening to that piece. Like that's it's done. I've done my bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that feeling.
but there's a few lines where I was hoping that the people reading it would take a moment to think about the line and reflect, and then try and apply it to their life,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe have some realizations about themselves.
Okay. So you're basically taking on the Carl Jungian kind of aspect of it and trying to apply it to you, and then therefore push it on to the other person that is accepting the book.
Yeah, pretty much in a way, I guess. So like the a lot of the active imagination thing was and for anyone listening who doesn't know what it is, it's basically a meditation technique where you imagine yourself going to your subconscious, and it helps you bridge the conscious and the subconscious. If you're going to get into it, then a little bit like do your research before you get into it. Like don't just go willy-nilly into doing this because it can
No.
be pretty hectic.
Yeah.
Uh but I lost my train of thought there. Uh, but yeah, so I was just basically putting out things that I've learned, and through that, I was hoping some people would be able to think about their own things, and somewhat have a point of understanding and a point of reflection.
Yeah, I
If that
think
makes sense.
yeah, a lot of people have their own means of addressing this. Um, when you have to approach your inner fears, and a lot of the time your inner fear is shit you don't want to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and which would be reflecting upon stuff, and therefore it could manifest in a sort of a character like you've got in this, and like in meeting, like on the journey here. I'm just vomiting out shit right now that's coming out of my brain.
Well, dude, it's a Monday night, and it's a pretty meaty, hectic topic to just dive into. So I don't blame you. To be honest, there's been times because obviously I've been doing interviews and talking to people about the album, and even I'm like, it's been there for so long, and
Yeah,
like I struggle to put it into words because it's both like clear because it was something like I experienced and went through a journey, but it's also I didn't want the album and the music to be super clear in its message, because I
yeah.
find that when art is super clear, here's what the song's about, then you can't take anything away from it yourself
When it's too obvious, yeah,
when it's too obvious.
yeah.
So it's not like the easiest thing to just like talk through.
Which is basically living up to interpretation, correct? Which is how art
Yeah.
should be, really. Like you put up an actual physical piece of like a painting, and you look at it, and you look at the title, and you look at what the description of what the artist is trying to portray, but then it leaves it open for you to actually try and interpret it for yourself what that actually is supposed to be meaning. And lyrics
Mm,
and music is a very simple sort of thing. I mean, like even when, who the fuck knows what was going through Kurt Cobain's head when he was writing some of the songs that were on In Utero, which is some of the darkest shit he's
mm,
written. And
totally.
it could have been something that was completely innocent, and he just, because he had this sort of twisted aspect of life, it just what he was seeing at that time, and then he's just put down on paper. But a lot of people have taken their own interpretation of those songs and made it something completely different, and that's what art is supposed to be anyway, to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Funnily enough, I used to actually try to figure it out all the time. Like, what is it? What do they mean?
But
But
that's just
now
the curiosity
I've
aspect of people like us, particularly like if we're all sort of like, I don't know if you are, but I'm definitely in the neurospicy sort of scale things, and I just want to dig and further
yeah,
find out what makes something work, and why was that person thinking like that way. It's just an analytical thing when it comes to creative minds.
yeah. I'm totally yeah. I'm the same like that.
Mm,
But now I also accept that there might be many different meanings,
exactly, because you're not that
which
person,
I
right?
think is beautiful. Yeah,
You're not the artist, so you don't know what the fuck they were thinking at the time. And a lot of the time,
yeah.
they don't even know the true meaning of the song most of the time, because they've just written something that was captured that moment, and then it's recorded
That's
down the
yeah,
line.
exactly.
Yeah.
Me and my partner actually watch a lot of Lynch movies, David Lynch
Hmm.
movies, and we spend so much time like, and we've trying to figure it out, and we've realized that there's just so many different ways you can interpret it.
Yeah.
And then we were watching an interview and we realized that David Lynch doesn't even know himself.
No. You know, oh.
Yeah, like. And I think that's also really interesting. Another interesting concept is like, how much is the subconscious just speaking for us? Like, are we just and not necessarily an antenna, although that's another idea, but
Yeah, no, I like that thought.
um, yeah, like, are we just an antenna of ideas, but
Mm.
also are we just a mouthpiece for the subconscious?
Mm. So, what does your internal monologuing voice sound like to you?
This is interesting. Do you ever talk to yourself as if there's another person there? Because
Yes.
that's how I talk. Like, I say we a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, oh, we should do that,
Mm.
which is kind of weird. Some people might find that really weird.
Yeah, if you look at, particularly if you're on TikTok right now, there's on my algorithm, it's the inner Becky. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but like there's
No,
the
what's that?
the intrusive thoughts is basically Becky, and you just tell Becky to shut the fuck up.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
mine's called Greg.
I should go apply a name. Although, I mean, I've got all sorts of gods that I've been and archetypes that I've used.
Now going into the music side of things, I'm pretty sure I explained because you name dropped basically Massive Attack, which I fucking love Massive Attack. I've got like 3 of their albums on vinyl. Like Mezzanine is one of my favorite albums of all time.
hmm
And Depeche Mode. You've also name dropped Radiohead and Pink Floyd, but I also threw a spanner in the works and mentioned Faithless because
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, the day after you said that, I
yeah,
went to a Sydney music fundraiser, and it was like in a record store, in a CD store,
yeah.
and I went through the CDs, and there weren't many CDs there, and Faithless was there, so
Was
I was
it
like, well, I'm
was it
buying that.
was it the Sunday
It
8 p.m.
wasn't,
one? No.
no, it wasn't. It was their first album. I was hoping it was going to be that, but no,
That's
it was the
that's the
first
one.
album.
That's the one to listen to, man, because the sound that you have on this album, a lot of those tracks just basically brought to mind that particular album, and
Really?
it's a brilliant album. Faithless were just another. They're part of the Bristol sound, but they weren't as intense, I guess, as like Massive Attack, and they didn't have the pomp of Portishead
hmm
and they weren't quite sort of like tricky level things. They were just another thing in their own. And Rollo, who was the DJ of the band, basically, his sister is Dido.
hmm
If you know who Dido is,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So Dido actually features on that album, by the way, the Sunday 8 p.m.
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah. And it's very, it is a bit of a religious experience in a sense when you listen to it. It's not as deep as say like Mezzanine from Massive Attack, where you sit down and you can feel the bass moving through the earth, which is how
Yeah.
they approach things. Faith is a little bit different, but yeah, it's very much the lot of the beats that you're using bring to mind, and the synths too bring to mind that album. So yeah, I actually that's
All
why
right, that's going to be on the listening list for
you
sure.
need to find it,
I'll be
man.
listening to that tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you should be able to find that at secondhand CD stores because it was a pretty big album at the time. I think it came out in '99, 2000. I don't know,
All right,
a while
cool.
ago.
It's fun, actually funny. Some of the CDs that came out free streaming services, it's actually hard to find them because like I was trying to
No,
find
there's a whole
you can
heap of
find you have to
those.
order them online. Yeah, I know there's some that's there. Obviously, but what I mean is like actually ordering the CDs online. There's been a few CDs where I've been like because I quit all my streaming services
Mm,
and now I'm just doing CDs and maybe YouTube and Bandcamp.
mm.
And I was like, oh, I'll order those CDs that I used to have that I've
Op
lost, and I
shops,
actually couldn't find them.
op
Op
shops.
shops, that's what I need to do. Yeah,
Right
op
now,
shops.
it's I mean, my wife she runs a very well known op shop, a very big one, and they get so many CDs and DVDs, and they just sell like hotcakes. It's
All
funny.
right, that's it.
So a lot of people are taking on, and I've actually seen this from the younger generation. I'm going to sound old here, but it's kind of cool seeing like Gen Zs and the alphas as well, and they're like my youngest daughter. She's collecting CDs. I'm just going, oh,
Really?
yeah, she's 17, nearly 17, and yeah, she's collecting CDs. I mean, she still does streaming too, but I find that really, I think they haven't had the connection, like the proper connection of the physical medium that we as
Yeah,
kids had. Like, I remember getting my first paycheck when I was 16, and one of the first things I did was buy a couple albums.
yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
I was
that
the same.
and then they've never had this.
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, I was reading comments, so you don't know how true it is, but I've also talked to a few other people
Yeah.
who are in the sort of young Gen Z, middle Gen Z era, like part of the generation, and they lump music in the same category as like social media, which is insane to me. As in,
Yeah.
they'll be like, you know what? Sometimes it's really nice to not just like not have music in my head, and social media and music, it can be so bad for us. And I'm like,
What?
what? What?
They're listening to music
That's
wrong.
crazy.
That's what the problem is.
Yeah. Or they're like, oh, you know what? I've been going for a walk and I've just been using no music, just nothing, like silence walking.
Well,
And I'm like,
that's actually kind of cool though, because I mean they're raw dogging it, so that's it,
yeah, that's a good thing.
it is a good
I'm all
thing.
for it.
But you're also
I
leaving
just,
yourself with your internal thoughts. So,
yeah, I just find it interesting the way they categorize music in relation to
just
other
yeah,
mediums.
that's weird. Because did
Yeah,
they put movies in the same category as that? Or I'm guessing not. Oh, unless they're streaming, because the streaming services when it comes to movies too. Huh?
yeah, something to think about.
Yeah. No.
So it's nice to hear that your daughter's collecting CDs because that means that's like I do think like the physical connection to the medium makes you value it more.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. Like, my vinyl collection's pretty expensive now. And one of the things that took me a long time to appreciate that medium was you have to sit down. You have to basically carefully pull that piece of vinyl out, give it a dust over, put on the player, make sure the needle's all good, and you spend the time because you've only got like a 20-minute, 15-minute sort of window before you have to switch sides. So you can't go off and do shit. You've got to actually sit there and appreciate
Yeah,
what the artist is trying to do. And it's difficult. I mean, you can skip songs, but it's a pain in the ass to do on vinyl. So
yeah,
it
totally.
it makes you listen to it. And that's one of the things that I actually love about that medium is that you have to spend that time. You have to invest that time. You've spent 60, 70, $80 on this piece of vinyl, and you have to yeah, really have to invest. You want your return on investment, basically.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Would you ever put this one onto like a hard copy like that?
I'd love to,
Mm.
but I really wanted the book because I thought that was something a bit different.
Yeah.
So I prioritized the book, and I'm just gonna see how the album tracks and
Mm.
how like how people respond. And then if I've got the spare money to put it out, I'd absolutely love to because I've got all those photos from the book.
Mm.
So I could easily make like the photos could be included. There could be a full fold out section.
Yep. Like the whole
I'd
gatefold.
love to, but in terms of yeah, cash flow at the moment, I just put that into the book and
Yeah.
we'll see how the rest goes.
It's not a cheap experience. I mean, you're looking at a minimum
No,
2K spend to put an album out, and then you got to
yeah,
market that
exactly.
sucker, and have
I
people
had to
wanting to
make
buy
a Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'll make a priority list and we'll put that lower on the
it.
priority list this round.
I mean, you can't. There is a service where you can do a one-off.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was thinking about doing something like that through Bandcamp and
Yeah,
just seeing if anyone would order it.
yeah, because
Um,
you can do like one-off printings and basically just for yourself. So that way you've actually got that, and just going, you know what? Look what I fucking did, and then it's there. It's a physical copy, which it's I think is kind of cool. I'd probably do
that
that.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would like to do that. Yeah.
So,
I'll see because one person actually did actually request it, so
oh
maybe
really?
just for them. Yeah, they said, "Dude, I'd love to have this on vinyl. Are you doing vinyl?" And I was like, "Not sure
Well,
yet."
there's
So we'll
one.
see.
When there's one, there's usually more to follow from that.
That's true. That's true.
Sorry
That's
if it
true.
looked like I was weird. There, I'm actually patting my cat to make sure he doesn't talk. He's just sitting there being
That's fine.
very very needy right now. He can't help it. So your pairing of basically a guitar and this sort of like trip hoppy sound and that is that something you want to expand on, or you want to the next
Yeah,
step is to do
actually,
something else?
yeah. So I've got at least four songs that I'm pretty certain will go on the next album.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been leaning more and more into the guitar, and I'm leaning more into the trip hop stuff,
Mm.
the trip hop beats. So like, half the album has the more forward to the floor um dance inspired
Yeah.
dance
This is still.
inspired
Yep.
style. But the newer stuff I've been writing is even more trip hoppy and
Mm.
more guitar. My camera's about to screw out, so I'm just gonna turn that off. Um, yeah, and more guitar driven. Which is interesting because I was in a band like years and years and years ago, and I was guitar and singer. And then when I went down to the electronic route, I basically like almost completely ditched the guitar and was just slowly moved away from it.
It does
And
happen.
now I've been coming full circle, and I've been using the guitar more and more.
Mm.
And now the electronic stuff is like slowly taking a bit more of a back seat, but I want to keep that merge. Like my favorite music is when there's live elements with the electronic elements. So I want to make sure I keep that nice balance in there somewhere.
That's why I actually like those. Ever listen to the Spawn soundtrack?
No.
Ah,
To be honest, I don't know these days. I actually don't listen to music very much. People are
yeah.
always like, "Oh, have you listened to this?" I'm
Yeah,
like,
because you're
"No."
immersed with your own stuff. Sometimes it can actually be a deterrent because you want to be creating and not being interfered with when you're creating your own shit. And then if you listen to other music, it
Exactly.
creeps in and you're just going, where the fuck did that come from? And then you listen to a song and go, oh shit, that's where that's come from.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
there
exactly.
was a big soundtrack for a very B grade comic book movie in the 90s called Spawn. And the soundtrack it was the case that the soundtrack was way better than the movie. And it
Yeah,
was
right.
basically a merger of heavy axe and electronic production. So you basically had the Crystal Method meeting with Filter, which was one of the biggest tracks on that album, which was "Can't You Trip Like I Do." Um, you had the Prodigy with Tom Morello. Um,
Wow.
the Chemical Brothers, I think, were I can't remember who they were with. And then you had the Dust Brothers with Korn. It just it was a really cool merging, and like it was kind of predictive of what was going to happen down the line in today's stakes, where this is like more of a commonplace kind of thing, where electronic artists use sort of like live instruments, but back then it was kind of groundbreaking. So that's I like to see that. I love that soundtrack, and I love to see that being used. So that's kind of cool that
Hmm.
you're doing that because there's not many that fuse that element anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, I want to definitely keep doing it. I just got distracted because I'm seeing a little timer go off that says 10 minutes. Is
Oh,
that going to affect us?
oh well, I do have to wrap up in about 5 minutes anyway, so we'll be fine.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was like, anyway.
Ignore that thing. Ignore it.
Ignore. That's the
Ignore it.
classic ADHD
Yeah.
ADHD brain just
Yep.
going, "Oh,
Oh,
look, something's
squirrel.
moving over there."
Squirrel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, it's funny you said all the 90s stuff because whenever I listen to music, I find myself, and I don't know what to listen to, I find myself reaching back towards the
I
90s.
always do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up in the 90s, I could be part of it, but most of my favorite music, it maybe is because I grew up, but I'm even finding bands that I like I never really listened to back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go back and I'll discover them now and I'll be like, oh, this is sick.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is. There's like a sound of that period that is just awesome.
They spent the time because it was none of this digital stuff. It was all analog still, but they were
Yeah.
breaking ground at the same time. They come out of the 80s era, which was the era of excess. Like it was with you had new wave and you had hair metal and that sort of stuff, and grunge aside, the alternative moment, which had like all this other weird and wonderful sort of shit. I mean, you had stuff like Beck and Sonic Youth, but then you had like Butthole
Mm,
Surfers doing weird shit, and then like even Garbage when they came out, people were just going, "What the hell was this?" And then all of a sudden they became this massive band because they were taking influences from other stuff from the 70s and 80s, and they were just going, you know what, let's just merge it into something that's just us.
mm,
And I think the problem with today's music industry, and particularly with the streaming and that, and I'm guilty of it too, is dilution. There is
mm,
that much out there, and basically your song, if you put it onto streaming and a campaign, basically has a 2 to 4 week lifespan, unless it grabs
mm.
hold, and then it just sort of sits there. And it
Yeah.
90s music did not do that without again
I think
saying
there's
flaws.
also I think there's also another reason why the 90s music has a particular sound, though. I mean, this conversation could explode into because we could go down the streaming Spotify thing. I
Yeah.
have so many opinions on. But sticking to the sound side of things, something that I have observed, and I could be wrong, but I think is that everything is now too clean.
Yep.
Like all of these like digital
Where's the grit?
conversions, yeah, everything's super clean.
Yep.
So like for example, Mac DeMarco, right? His
Hmm.
first two albums. Do you ever listen to Mac DeMarco?
In shades, I could not get into him.
He wasn't your vibe. That's
Nah.
fair enough.
Mm.
I can see that with the music that you like to play and everything like
Yeah.
that. But so anyway, his first two albums, he made everything on like analog, a
Yeah.
mixture of analog and digital. So he was recording a lot of it into like Ableton, but his computer sucked, and he was like basically like a bum hippie guy who had
Hmm.
no money. So he was just getting like any recording gear he could. And so his first like two or three albums have that lo-fi, really interesting sound, and I loved it. But then he got really big,
Yep.
made a heap of money. He went out and bought all this new equipment,
It sucked the life
and
out of it.
I didn't know this till
Yeah.
years later, and I just couldn't get into his new albums. I was
Mm.
like, I don't know why, I can't get into it. And then I read an interview, and he was doing a studio tour, and he had all this new equipment, and I compared it to his old stuff, and I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
It's all this super flash digital,
It's the
and
same
I think
as
that's part of
same as heavy music. It's compressed to the fuck, and it's so clean and so
the.
tight, and I appreciate it. And I do love the new heavy sound. But if you listen to heavy music back in the 90s, particularly like Pantera's albums, they sound like they're just been rubbed in dirt. But that's in a good sense, okay? Like
Yeah,
you feel dirty after listening to it, but like in a good way. Whereas like
yeah,
today's heavier sort of stuff, yeah, it's just the guitars are super compressed, the drums are just like triggers and all that sort of shit, and like I appreciate it, and it's cool. I mean, I love listening to Sleep Token, and I love listening to sort of all this heavier sort of stuff. But you're right, there is a little bit of life not there that was there in the
yeah.
90s.
That's something I want to try to do with my with the album I just released, as well as the future albums. I want to I mean, I don't have a crazy setup. I've just got like a, you know, what is it? 12 input audio interface and a synth and a drum machine. That's basically everything.
Mm,
But I'm with the guitaring and everything, sometimes if the recording isn't super perfect, I like to actually just leave it in there.
mm,
And I try not to get everything super tight, or if there's noise, like all of the vocals were just recorded in my bedroom
yeah,
rather than going into, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go into like a slick studio to record the vocals. But I thought, it's part of the space.
yeah.
Like maybe we'll make it sound a bit more like real,
Exactly.
hopefully.
Yeah. On that note, Zach, this has been amazing chats, man. Thank you for this. We'll wrap things
Thank
up
you for
here.
having me.
All good. We'll have a quick debrief after this is all gone. But for those that don't know, I've got the link still up on the website, but I will put it into this podcast as well for the link to both the Bandcamp and the YouTube for Fears, Reflections, and Shades of Time, the album. Good luck with everything, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be part of that journey. That was very cool.
Oh, of course, thank you. I look forward to having that beer in person
All
at
right,
some point.
let's do it. Everyone else, adios. Yes. See, I've fixed things on this side. So no more glitching, nice and clean. Oh, that's so much better. Big love to Zach, aka Locian, for jumping on that podcast with me. Really appreciate it, and thanks for the deep dive into weird and wonderful things. And do check out the album, Fears, Reflections, and Shades of Time. I'll put the link into both the Bandcamp if you want to purchase it, or the YouTube, so you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. Yeah, great album, and I really appreciate his time. That's it for me for now. I'm sure I've got another podcast down the line because get asked from him, and it's cool. I really appreciate that. Okay, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all sorts, I've already said that. Thank you for supporting local music, Australian music, all sorts of music, live music. You guys are legends. Bye.